Disclaimer: the views and opinions expressed in Nerdy Talk do not represent those of Anime Herald. Due to strong language, listener discretion is advised. Now sit back and enjoy the show. Hey everyone, it's time for Nerdy Talk. I'm Mike Fern and joined by the Fallon people.
Anthony Simpson.
Matt Brown.
And we're going to be continuing this week as we discuss the new anime season. Particularly this week, I'd like to lead off with a bit of a news commentary. You guys heard that Sentai acquired Captain Earth, right?
Yes.
Yep.
This is like the seventh or eighth show this season that they've announced in the course of over the span of about 2 weeks, which is actually pretty interesting. I kind of wanted to bring this out to the open because we haven't seen this kind of rapid fire licensing announcements in a while. Personally, I likened it to the days of the bubble back in the time when we would go to, say, Anime Boston or Otakon. We'd have ADV or Funimation proudly proclaiming that they announced 10, 11, 12 shows at a time. You're starting to see that same enthusiasm, that same like rapid fire push to get the newest stuff before anyone else really starting to come to life again, especially with the recent pushes for like the limited edition and stuff like that. But I kind of wanted to hear what you guys were thinking about it.
I'll go first, at least with the pushes for shows or license. For stuff like Funimation now, just because they get streaming rights for a show, it doesn't always necessarily mean they're going to put out a physical product later on.
Right. It means that they didn't want Crunchyroll to get the streaming license.
Well, no. We're starting to see it now where they get both, where Crunchyroll gets it and Funimation gets it, but Crunchyroll gets in the sense that they get everywhere outside of like U.S. and Canada, and then Funimation just gets U.S. and Canada. But what I meant is like some stuff they license for streaming doesn't always equate to, well, we're gonna put a release out, because they didn't get the streaming numbers. Like for example, I think they have about 10 shows this season they licensed.
Something like that.
Well, if you can, okay, you can see. Yeah. Well, if we count out the new Fairy Tale, if you count out One Piece, they have about 9 new shows. Well, yeah, 9 new shows. Now, I'm not sure how many of these are all going to get released. Well, we know One Piece is, because again, it's One Piece, and so will Fairy Tale whenever they get to that. The Idolmaster show, or not the Idolmaster, it's the spinoff of that, the Puchimas, I guess that's. I'm sorry, I'm butchering this.
Puchimasu.
Yeah, because they didn't release the first series. They're not, they didn't put it out, but they licensed the second season. They licensed the second one. So I'm not sure on that one if that's a case of they are going to, they got good enough numbers to try to get the second season and see if they get enough there to go for another, to put it out eventually. Or if this means they're going to eventually try to get Idolmaster. I mean, that's a possibility. But that's probably the only one here I can see not getting a release. I mean, and now that they also do, sub-only releases now, that also means there's a better chance that some of these shows could also be put out, minus a dub, but they could still get a release.
Speaking of, have you heard anything about the performance of the ONI release? I mean, I know they were kind of testing the waters of that.
I don't know. I just know. I mean, it wasn't ONI is not a very good show. It's basically, if you've seen one harem, you've seen them all. Basically, you've seen this one because everything we've seen here is basically seen elsewhere. I mean, it's just, and like I said, it's all there. I mean, it has some positives. It has a nice technical merits, and there's not a huge amount of fan service for what one would expect. But other than that, I wouldn't say it's anything good. But I think it was a good show to test this kind of water again, because it wasn't going to be a show that was going to be, top in the sales charts. This isn't going to be something like Attack on Titan or Soul Eater or Black Lagoon, where those titles are going to sell. They're gonna sell because they're good. Where it's good for some things, but I wasn't expecting to be like this great chart topping sales item. But no, I don't know how it did for them. But I mean, it was an interesting experience that they were experiment, I should say. Sorry, that they decided to go that route for this. Now, what does this mean? Well, if it did well for them, what this could mean is that we could see some more them go after other types of shows that maybe they wouldn't get normally, and they get a release. They just get a release sans a dub. Like that might be the case with Ping Pong the Animation, being that it's a sports anime, and that the sports anime doesn't really do well over here, and doesn't do well here in the U.S. and Canada. And we know that Big Wind Up was a bomb for Japan, and I also know Bamboo Blade didn't do very well either. That bombed, which was unfortunate because that's a very good show. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. But now the fact that they can put out, like I said, sub-only releases, maybe some of these titles that were in the past too risky, or not, shouldn't say too risky, too much of a chance of that they would put it out there, but not do well for them. There may be a chance that these shows can now be given given a shot over here. Like maybe that might be the case with Ping Pong the Animation. There's a chance that I'm not watching it, but I'm streaming it whenever I can get a chance, so that they can get their numbers, so that it can get released over here, so that for the fans who like the series, they can enjoy it.
Definitely.
I think the real question with a harem show isn't whether it'll be another Attack on Titan, because that's impossible, but whether it will be another Tenchi Muyo or Saber Marionette J or Love Hina.
Oh no, it's not. It's not going to be. Those types of shows only come every so often, and Oniai is not in that caliber of those shows.
No, I mean, those are something incredibly special. I mean, it takes a lot of skill to get something of that caliber out there.
Incredibly special in that they're harem shows, but they somehow don't suck.
Exactly. I can't really think off the top of my head of many harem shows that I even remember, let alone enjoyed. So I'm not exactly the best person to talk about this. But I'm also an incredibly old fart that came from the days of Rama and Tenchi Muyo, so I don't know if that opinion is incredibly valid.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to talk about. We liked a lot of those types of shows. Maybe different ones for each of us, but at the same time, why should I not feel ashamed of that? These shows are about as far divorced from reality as humanly possible, except there's always something worse. It's sort of a given, but yeah, I loved Love Hina, and it's such a, I don't know, I guess I just latched onto everything about it that wasn't harem and ran with it in my mind.
Love Hina in general was a charming show that just happened to be a harem.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's usually the big thing with these. They're good shows first, but they just happen to be in another genre. Like Love Hina, the comedy was fantastic. It was a genuinely funny show. And it could be just serious enough when it needed to be. Then if you look at Akamatsu's other harem show, Negima, it goes in the opposite direction.
If you haven't had a chance, do read, for our listeners, if you haven't had a chance to read the Love Hina manga, please do so. It's very, very good.
Oh man, I agree. The manga was fantastic.
Yeah, I remember buying it when Tokyo Pop got it, and that was, I'm going to date myself here, that was about 10 years ago.
Yeah, I like the show, but in this case, I did like the manga even more.
Yeah, the manga is it's very good. It actually has an ending. For those listening,
that's the important part.
Excuse me.
I said that's the important part.
Yeah, it does have an ending, not like the anime. Or spoiler, not like the anime. Um,
Well, if you if you watch everything that was ever animated, it comes close.
yeah, true.
Like the Love Hina again, I think sort of wraps it up in a satisfactory way. If I
Yeah,
remember right.
I haven't seen that. No, yeah, do read the manga, but I'm gonna date myself here a bit. I mean, this was about almost 10 years to the date that I actually bought the manga. That was the first manga that I bought to its completion. Because the reason I got it was 'cause I graduated from high school about 10 years ago, and my grandmother gave me money as part of my graduation gift. So I'm like, well, I feel like spending some of my money. So I think I was off. I was either off work or I just gotten off work, and where I worked at the time was right near a Barnes and Nobles, which is still there. So I went over there, and I was just. I mean, I had bought manga before, but I didn't up the completion, just like some stuff here and there. And because at this point I'd already seen the anime because I bought, again, I'm going to date myself here. I bought the singles that when Bandai had it, I bought the singles as they came out. Because I started buying them. I started buying them before I read the manga, because that was right around the end of school, because it was around prom season, and I didn't go. I just went to the mall after school. And I'm like, no, I'll try something different. Because at that point, I was only really buying, Gundam DVDs from Bandai. And I'm like, oh, just looking, the show looks interesting. And I'm like, oh, I liked it. And then I saw the mall. And then, like I said, I was at Barnes & Noble's one night. And I'm like, I'll start buying a couple volumes. And then I bought, next thing I know, I bought, the whole thing. And, yeah, I read it and I loved it. And if you haven't got a chance now, Kodansha Comics has it. You can pick up the omnibus versions of it now, because they picked it up.
You think you're dating yourself? I graduated high school 18 years ago.
Yeah, well,
who's dated now?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's come up for 10 years for me, so just seems like yesterday.
Maybe I shouldn't have mentioned that.
Well,
I'm 12, so I'm pretty far behind you.
No. Yeah.
Well, we all know that you're a 12-year-old inside, Mike.
Yeah, we all know. We all know Mike may be an adult, but he's still inside. He's still a Shota.
Yes, I mean, I buy toys, I play video games, I sit here and I watch cartoons and I write about them. I'm a 12-year-old kid.
Hey, I mean, I'm the same. I mean, I'm here writing about cartoons, and I play video games and I play toys, so I'm in the same boat.
You wanna know something though? I'm happy I do it, so that's all that freaking matters.
Hey, same here.
Speaking of, this is on a tangent.
And the last 10 minutes wasn't.
Surprisingly, no. But anyway, this is off on another tangent. Last week, Anime Herald acquired Order the Nerd. So expect some good things coming out of that within the next couple weeks, guys. We're going to be putting out the call for certain like-minded individuals. So stay tuned. All right, and that's all I want to say about that.
Awesome sauce.
Do I just have to be a nerd to be in the order?
Yes.
Do I have to know some kind of secret handshake or some kind of passcode?
Nerds don't touch other nerds' hands. What are you talking about?
The passcode is Justin Bailey. Alternate passcode is Icarus fights Medusa Angels. If you understand what those are, then you're more than welcome.
Oh, thank God. I don't understand them at all.
All right. Getting back on topic. So, getting back on topic. Matt, what are your thoughts on this whole situation with the rapid fire licensings? How they kind of relate to that, the quote unquote good old days where we're in the middle of the bubble.
At least as far as Sentai goes, this is going to sound a bit nebulous, but it's like they're able somehow to go after the same kinds of shows that they did in the bubble days. and that's what they're doing. Like the recent acquisition of Captain Earth is a good example, because it's like, well, I don't want to give too much away if we're going to talk about that later, but it's like a sort of it's a Raza Fund 2, because it's made by Bones and kind of, I won't say the same art style or anything like that, but the same sensibilities.
Fair enough.
And at least a few of these other things, it's like they're going after things that seem like they would have been made by Gynax if it were 10 years ago, but they weren't made by Gynax. But it doesn't matter. You know, ADV was always after all things Gynax, and you know, pretty much any show that fit the bill as far as that goes. Stuff that the Uber fans of the day were after.
True.
Things that celebrate otaku culture and things that tear it apart, all the same.
You know, it's kind of funny. They were all about all things Gynax, all things fan service, all things otaku, but they never got the one thing that was all three.
What was that?
Cutie Honey. That 6-episode Gynax OVA that was an adaptation of Cutie Honey.
Well, hey,
I'm just
doesn't Discotheque have the original series now?
Yep, the 1970s series, yeah.
Hey, there's a possibility they can get that.
I hope so, because it was actually very good.
I mean, they did put out Abe no Bashi, and that covers quite a lot of things.
Yes.
True.
And it's also a very good show.
It is a fantastic show.
I haven't seen that in a while. I need to rewatch it.
So why? It was a wonderful show.
The other thing I found interesting was that Netflix picked up a show for streaming. That was interesting.
You know
I don't know what else to say about it.
Well, I mean, it's not going to air till the summer, and it'll be dubbed by then. But yeah, that was interesting that they picked it up. They picked something up too. I mean, different groups have gotten stuff. Like I said, and NISA's already got a show, that the flag show
Before her flag breaks or something like that.
Yeah, that's another show that looks like part would have made by Gynax years ago. But again, I don't say that as a bad thing.
I wasn't saying it as a bad thing either.
No.
Just I love a lot of the shows made by Gynax.
Yeah, they have some very good shows in there that they made in the past. Has Viz gotten anything this season?
I don't recall seeing any presses come from them lately. They've been really focused on Neon Alley stuff lately.
Well, they can always still get stuff later. I mean,
oh yeah, they're the child company of Shogakukan and Shueisha.
Yeah, they can always, like I said, still end up getting something after the fact.
They're never the type of company that chomps at the bit for anything new necessarily, unless it's made by one of the people they have a well-established relationship with.
Yeah, they're most of them, but they're manga first, anime second. So I mean,
right.
And they're a very pragmatic company too in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that they're kind of sticking to know that. Okay, yeah, we do manga for that we're still sticking with the manga, and then they're kind of getting back in the anime game again.
Yeah,
but not being crazy about it, because like I said, it always to them was always manga first, anime second.
I mean, their biggest anime releases are usually the Rumiko Takahashi stuff. So.
Oh yeah, but that stuff sells. That stuff sells usually.
Oh god, yeah. Like I don't doubt those Rama sets are going to be selling very well through the lifespan, because it's a classic.
Yeah.
They are one of the few companies that have had the guts to put out magical girl shows, and not all of them worked out for them, and a few fans were a bit butthurt by the fact that some of them just didn't finish their release, but still, it's nice to see them trying, and even if it doesn't do so well, it's these are some pretty good shows, and they deserve to be seen by someone.
Well, I know a lot of people were very upset they didn't finish Monster, but that's a whole other discussion. And then magical girl shows, they're kind of neat. They're sort of niche over here. I mean, except for again stuff like Sailor Moon,
sports shows.
Yeah, they're well. I mean, you have like Sailor Moon, but that kind of transcends different stuff. That's kind of the exception to the rule.
Well, one of the shows I was thinking of is Full Moon wo Sagashite, and it's a long show, quite a lot of filler, but I found it enjoyable, and it's nice to see that they tried to put it out, but it just wasn't received well enough here.
Well,
yeah,
like I said, it's niche enough as it is here. So, I mean, some of them just while they are fan favorites, that's always a risk. I mean, I'll give you another example is Magical Girl Lyrical Nanaha. I mean that that's a good. I mean, first season was okay, and then it got better. And the second season was definitely very good. But they didn't do very well. So now are we going to see them again over here? No, but isn't Anime Souls? Aren't they crowdfunding a couple Magical Girl shows? I mean, I know they're older ones, but aren't they? Don't they have?
They did Creamy Mommy. I know that for sure.
Yeah. Now, granted, that's old, and that's a lot older for show, but
that's incredibly influential, actually. But
So that's again, it's like like that and Sailor Moon.
The crowdfunding does change the equation a little bit because if it's going to happen at all, it's already paid for. So in that sense, it's kind of neat.
But I mean, even then, it just barely made it through that crowdfunding for the fourth set, like by the skin of its ass.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how Cardcaptor Sakura did for Genyon. I'm not sure how it did for them.
I don't know, but I know
I have my doubts.
Nowadays it sells for a pretty penny.
I mean, Clamp stuff has varying popularity over here, but mostly it does okay. Cardcaptor Sakura is a bit dated though.
But it's still from what I've seen of it, it's good. Oh, I was also thinking of Magic Knight Ray Earth.
I was just gonna mention Ray Earth.
Media Blasters put that out.
That's a consistent seller.
Yeah, well, Dark Horse has the manga, or they also have Cardcaptor Sakura. They also have that too.
The main difference with Ray Earth is that it's a nice, short, action-packed show.
Yeah. Because I know Discotheque has the first Cardcaptor Sakura movie. So I guess if it does well for them, there's a chance they might, they could potentially, I guess, get the rest of it. And I know this might not be Magical Girl. I know they said they got some show with cats in it, which it could be, which this is kind of stretching. It could be Tokyo Mew Mew, but I figure after the debacle known as Hollywood Mew Mew, I don't think anyone want to deal with that again.
Well, it wouldn't shock me if it was, because I mean, don't forget the debacle with One Piece.
Yeah, well, we're not singing the One Piece rap at least.
Please don't.
No, I won't.
I should have mentioned another thing about Ray is that's different. Obviously, is that it's a fantasy and not a Magical Girl show, really.
Well, I mean, I guess it has Magical Girl elements, so but.
I mean, it doesn't really. I mean, the main thing about Magical Girl shows is the transformation. Ray Earth is kind of a straight up fantasy. It's a whisked away to another world sort of thing. And there are no giant robots, so it's pretty straight up.
Well, there is mecha.
Yeah, they're all mecha. They got the rune gods, Mashi.
Well, the girls themselves aren't piloting the mecha, right?
They are. Yeah, they are.
Wait, when did this happen? Is this this actually happened in the show?
Yeah.
Yes.
Happened in the show, the manga, and the Sega Saturn game.
And
Super Nintendo game.
I don't remember that at all.
Oh. I was also thinking of another Magical Girl show. I was thinking one of the more recent ones that was popular was Monica Magica. Now I don't know how that's doing for Aniplex of America. I'm sure it's doing well for them.
They can command the prices they do for the movies. Then they're doing pretty well.
Yeah, that I'm pretty sure is selling well over here for those who can afford those sets. It's doing well. So I mean, there are ones that Magical can do good here. It's just not
Mm.
all of them can.
Right. To
But
be
then
fair,
it's like any. Sorry, I guess it's like anything in any genre. You know, some stuff can work over here, and some stuff can't.
They tend to be very long. Like Sailor Moon is the only thing I think with staying power here in the U.S.
Well, yeah.
Some of the other shows, like I think Fancy Lala did all right for Bandai, but it's nice and short. It's just two seasons by today's standards.
Well, I've never seen it, so.
Right.
Well, of course, we have the new Sailor Moon anime coming out next season, so.
And I believe ADV said something about Kaleido Star doing all right for them.
They did want to get. Sorry.
I don't know if I classify Kaleido Star as a magical girl show, but I mean, I wouldn't call it I wouldn't call it a magical girl. I don't know how it did for Funimation. I don't know. I mean, I know they have.
Yeah.
I bought those sets, and well, I have the ADV singles, and then I also have the Funimation sets because they have the OVAs that ADV didn't get.
Right.
The funny thing is they have some of the extras they carried over, so they have like some of the people, one of the English voice actors going over to ADV to record, and that's all there.
That's kind of awesome, actually. It's like
and it's not censored either. So like they don't say like, oh, we're here, like like they don't censor out ADV. That's like they're like, oh, we're here at ADV recording, which is it's kind of funny because I saw that I'm like that's just humorous to me.
Oh, okay. I see. It was just a straight up idol show. For some reason, I was thinking it was a magical girl, but it's not.
No, you're thinking of shoot, what was it? They had a couple like that though. I just can't think of them off the top of my head. They got them like during that period where they had Sailor Moon and they were trying to kind of beef up the lineup. Then license went bye bye. License went so far bye bye.
Yep.
So far away. Which is why
the writing was on the wall at that point, though.
Oh yeah,
it had gotten bad for them to the point where they were still licensing so many things and hardly putting anything out, actually on the market.
Yeah, like didn't they have Sergeant Frog like completely dubbed with the first season? They just never released it because they couldn't afford to.
They had a couple episodes dubbed. I think they had one. I know there was. Well, I know they did 5 episodes of Gurren Lagann.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, because Mike Toole over at and he shows it on his panel that he does at some anime cons. The Dubs That Time Forgot.
That's a fun panel.
Yeah, and he has that in there. He goes, you probably know, because I think I'm going to just quote because I've only seen this in video. Having never done anime con, I'm just seeing this in video. He goes, you all know about this show? And then he shows Gurren Lagann. He goes, I'm going to show you something with this. He goes, do you mind want to tell me what's different? Of course, and he plays a clip, and it's it's ADV cast version of it, or the ADV version of it that they have, which I said I think they got about 5 episodes, and then they lost the license, and then I know they did something with Sergeant Frog. I don't know if they had how much of it they dubbed, or if it was just like sword trial stuff. But I know they did have that. I think it was mentioned on Ancast once in one of their real early episodes about about Sergeant Frog. Because I never heard that.
I know they had at least some portion of it. I wasn't sure how much. I mean, my gut says it was that much, but it probably wasn't. Like more than likely, it was probably only 1 or 2 episodes, like Gurren Lagann was.
Yeah, because Gurren Lagann, like I said, they got 5, and then it went.
License ended up getting surrendered or something like that.
Yeah, well, they lost the license, and bond they got and bang zoomed
on. And that's history.
Yeah, because I think Mike Toole was saying that his friend of his was in it, and I think that was going to be kind of his big launching point. And then, of course, when that happened, then he didn't get too much work after that. Then he didn't get too much anime work after that. Which bummed him out, but. These things happen, unfortunately.
I think the salient point of this whole discussion has been that nobody is really that interested in what's happening right now, except in the context of what happened before.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I think you just nailed it because yeah, we went through this whole thing and we spent the whole time kind of relating to the past. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
You know, that said, if Sentai actually puts out the shows and makes money off of them, then terrific. I'm all for it.
Oh, I have faith that they're going to do it. They've been pretty good.
I hope, you know, I hope, you know, with history in mind that that all of that stuff actually gets released and we don't have a repeat of before.
Well, the only show recently they haven't, well, it was a few years ago, the only one they didn't put out was Roku, but that's only because the Japanese licensors said, no, you can't put it out. And
Right.
they took the physical rights, which still, to this day still makes me mad. But nothing I can do on that.
No, that one you can't help.
Yeah, because that was a good show. And I just finished up the second season on Sunday, and that's also very good too. But
Yeah. Never underestimate the power of the Japanese companies to ruin the foreign releases.
well, I mean, there's theories as to what happened. I mean, because this was all kind of the theory, the prevalent theory with why people think it got pulled was because this was when they announced it wasn't too long after the Jerry Sandusky scandal. So some think that because that happened, you know, they thought, oh, that's a little too. Because to be fair, if you haven't seen Rokubu, it doesn't, you know, nobody's getting molested. And I know I'm a terrible person for comparing these two events, but
Yes, you are.
yeah, that's one theory, that because of what happened with, you know, the Penn State scandal, Jerry Sandusky, that Japan felt that, you know, maybe we better not have this show, like, you know, physically put out.
Is it related to sports?
Yeah, it's a basketball show, but the thing is,
I
because it's the main cast is a bunch of 6th grade girls. So,
Fair
well, to
enough.
be fair, it is a lolly and show to anime, but it's a basketball show. But it's very good. It's just there's some sports and some fan service, and I think that the latter might have been, they might have got.
So it's especially good if you're a little bit too old to like little girls.
Or it's good, or you could really like it if you if you like Shotas and lollies like I do. And I just killed the conversation.
Just a little. Just a little.
To be fair, I baited you a little bit.
Yeah, I know. Well, I do like that show. I mean, if you get past I know the fan service aspect might creep some people out, but if you get past that, it's actually not. It's actually a good show.
Fan service isn't really a problem. Fans are the problem.
Well, I mean, there's nothing really like, you don't see like any nipples or anything. Like, yeah, you see like where they're, you know, like the girls are developing. Like, yeah, you see their breasts, but like they have like soap covering their nipples, so you don't see that. And there's a couple panty shots, but they keep it kind of restricted to the adults, and the high schoolers. So they do keep it tasteful in that area.
All right.
Thanks for articulating why they didn't let that show get released.
This part will be cut, right?
Probably not.
Damn it.
All right, and moving on, I figure for the second half of the show, we can start talking about some of the shows that are currently airing that we're all watching.
Please, let's do.
Yes, let's. That scene.
That is exactly what I wanted to talk about. It's like you read my mind.
Must be a psychic, Mike.
1990s enthusiasm.
So we're going to go back to wearing like brightly colored clothing and
Slap bracelets.
oh fuck, I can't remember what I was going to say now.
Rabu and
bracelets.
Opisu.
Yeah, slap bracelets and
Pogs.
you
Pogs.
know, lots of commercialism.
Well, we could go back to the 80s and start chanting Reaganomics. All right. Anyway, let's get things rolling. So first show I'd like to talk about is The World Is Still Beautiful, which I believe all three of us have seen. And
Were you looking for me to say yes? Yes.
yes,
Yes, I did, because I told you a bunch of times, and I also told you to watch it.
Yeah, you also drive me into watching it now.
And then I realized after the fact that Anthony had already talked about it, so he's a little bit ahead of us.
But I'll talk about it again because last week was
Yeah.
kind of, our last show was kind of like a whirlwind with me going on what I seen.
Right. So, for those that haven't seen it, it's a show about Nike, I think it is.
Yeah.
Spelled Nike, but Nike. The fourth princess
Yeah.
of the Rain Dukedom, which is this tiny dukedom principality in a fantastic world, and she has the power to call forth rain, storms, things like that. She travels to the reigning kingdom of the world, the Sun Kingdom, to marry the Sun King, the rule of the country, to maintain her country's autonomy. Um, she not too thrilled about that,
Oh,
and
she finds out after the fact that she's been chosen.
well, yeah, of course. So pretty much, she discovers the king is pretty much just a kid. Well, not even a kid, but he's young.
The emperor
They,
has no clothes in the ending sequence.
I don't think they'd be able to air that without
No,
violence. I'm sorry, Lo.
no, he basically wakes up and you see his ass
Yeah,
because the
yeah.
king's the emperor king, whatever the hell his title is, he sleeps nude. But now apparently, if the show wants to get the Fujoshi on board, they need to get him and his servant in bed together. Because I'll just try, and then of course I'll drive the Fujoshi salesman crazy. And I just killed it yet again.
Yes, you did.
You bring a you bring a
You
good
do.
point. I don't know who the show is targeted at. Honestly,
It's a romance show.
Hmm.
I mean, I know there's not
Yeah.
like romance. I mean, it's
well, it's like she's spunky, but she's not tsundere, and it's a worlds collide show. Kind of something that makes me think of is Crest of the Stars, kind of a their worlds are very different, and they at times don't get along because of that. He's very anyway. I don't want to get in the middle of that just yet, but it's there's surprisingly few tropes in this show to really latch onto, and
At least at this point.
maybe the butler is sort of a trope that you can identify with,
right.
but the two main characters have been they've successfully evaded that so far that I can tell. So I don't know specifically who the show is targeted at.
Well, it is a shoujo manga, so I'd probably say that probably have a similar target audience,
Well, that would make sense.
or at least aiming at like a Fujoshi audience. I mean, because I'm going to kind of start here. The Nikkei, I like her as a character. She's strong. She's a strong female character. Being that she's thrust in this situation that again, like Matt said, after the fact, she learned that I'm going to be married to this guy. It's not. She doesn't act like I got to be. I have to be the perfect wife for him. It's not that. Which I think if it would have been that way, maybe it would make the show a little less. It wouldn't be as good, though. That's another discussion. But I do like the way that she is portrayed. Like I said, not I'm married. I'm gonna be married to this guy. Well, I have to be. I have to be the perfect wife. Which again, that's not a bad character type. If that's the show's aim, which this isn't. That I don't. I mean, obviously, it's a romance show, and it is like I said, it's a show based off a shoujo manga. That being said, it's not all romance because we see that they're still sort of the main two characters are still kind of figuring each other out. The Livius or Livus. Sorry, I'm going to butcher his name again.
How dare you? No, just kidding.
Yeah. First, before I get any further, I do want to apologize for the last show with me butchering the names of the shows. I'm not very good at pronouncing show titles sometimes, so I apologize.
And also, you're a butcher by trade.
I was an apprentice meat cutter in before I worked at the current place. So
Totally nailed it. I didn't
Yeah.
even know that.
well, no, in training, but that's another time.
So you're just not a very good butcher.
That was never my intention, my career choice, but we're not going to go there on that. The main character, the guy, I'm still kind of warming up to him. I know he's very young and looking, and he's about, I think the manga says he's 15 years old. So for spoilers, if you haven't seen this far, he was isolated, was younger because, well, his father was the king, his mother was a commoner, and he was isolated a lot. I guess because of that fact, or because of the fact that his mom wasn't, part of the royalty. He was kept isolated, so that's also shaped how he is. And I'm kind of curious to see how, because I've only seen up to episode 3. I haven't seen episode 4 yet, which is out as of this recording. I haven't seen it. Yeah, I'm probably gonna watch that tomorrow. I'm kind of curious to see how his character over I think it's 12. I'm not sure how many episodes this is. Probably is going to be 12. Well, 12 or 13. But I'm just kind of curious to how his character develops over the course of the series if he does start to open up more.
Yeah, it's the kinds of problems he has are the sorts of things that you might expect that a boy king to have. He's got a lot of power. He's got a lot of stress. He is a little bit too eager to solve all of the problems that he has in front of him. He doesn't relax, et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, yeah, he has a whole, basically, he's running the nation, a very powerful kingdom at such a young age. So he's got all this, responsibility placed on his shoulders. And I don't know if he's some kind of, absolute monarch. I guess from what we've seen so far, that might be the case. Or if he has some restrictions, it's the restriction in his power is very few.
And the girl, by contrast, is she's the youngest daughter of her people, or of her royal family, I should say. And as such, you would expect she has the least amount of responsibility, the most freedom, and her character sort of portrays that. Right from the beginning, when she visits his country, of the man that she's going to marry, she just hops off of her ship into the middle of into a pretty much unnamed port. She's with the commoners. She even spends time with them before moseying her way on to the capital.
Yeah,
and, much to the chagrin of everybody who's interested in her visit.
Well, it also didn't help that her interactions with the people were mixed at best. I mean, when she was trying to buy stuff, her money was basically toilet paper. So things like that, you got to see a lot of flavor come from that, a lot of eccentricity, which was great.
Right. There's one thing I'm curious about, because I didn't really state how old she is. I mean, is it? I know she's obviously she's probably the same age as the king, or maybe she's
slightly
a bit younger, older, because they really don't.
I would say slightly older.
Yeah,
that would be my guess.
Because
probably not older than 17.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, because it doesn't seem like that would be the type. Because I mean, otherwise they'd be pitching the sisters a little bit differently, different demographic type of thing.
Right.
Even the oldest sister couldn't be older than her mid-20s.
Mm-hmm. I would say it'd probably be, because like I said, it's never really stated.
No.
But I'm kind of curious as to where this goes. I don't think this got licensed by anybody yet over here, other than Crunchyroll steaming it, or sorry, not Steam, streaming it.
Crunchyroll and Steam? Holy crap!
This is what people. This is what happens when you're trying to multitask and you're trying to talk at the same time. I know they're streaming it. I don't think anybody's got it as licensed it for physical release, although I'm pretty sure Sentai will pick this up. This seems like something that would be up their
Yeah,
seems like something
it's hard to say. It seems obvious that the likes of Aniplex and Nisa won't pick it up. Sentai might, Funimation might. It's hard to say from my point of view.
Well, Aniplex. Let me see here, because
honestly, if anyone was going to pick this up, I would actually pitch this as more of a Nisa show. To be honest, because it's one of those low key releases, kind of like House of Five Leaves or something like that, where it doesn't quite fit into their usual stuff, but it's something that where pursuing it would probably be beneficial to them.
Yeah, because I couldn't. This doesn't seem like. I don't think Aniplex tends to get, or Aniplex of America, or they tend to get stuff that's within their family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't. This is by Stu Pierrot or
Studio Piero.
Piero.
Yeah, I can't. Again, me butchering names.
Well, we're here to correct you and smack upside the head once in a while.
I think they're the ones that did Fancy Lala, kind of harkening back to the earlier discussion.
They did.
But yeah, I think everybody's kind of biding their time with this, and I do believe somebody will pick it up, but we're gonna have to all see how the show develops.
Yeah.
In order for the the interested parties to really decide if they're going to go after it.
Yeah, it's. I have a feeling it's going to get picked up, most likely by someone like Nisa. It's just a gut feeling. It's not going to go like, say, Kindaichi, which is never going to get licensed.
Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to mention was the name Nike, if that was intentional, is it's the term for the goddess of victory in Greek culture, and it's related to kind of in a loose way to the original marathon that was run between I don't want to go too much into that, but anyway, the guy that ran the original marathon from Marathon to Athens exclaimed Nike at the end of it, so the story goes, and then he died. Cool story, bro.
Yeah, I'm not sure either where it's going to go. I will say it probably was one of the best first episodes of the season for the stuff that I mean, in terms of quality. I mean, there were other ones I enjoyed for far different reasons, but probably say in terms of just outright enjoyment and quality alone, I'd say that this was probably my favorite first episode of the season.
I kind of agree. I really have not watched as much as you, say Matt or you, because I've been kind of wrapped up in other shows. But
right.
I do want to kind of finish this one up. It's one that's really grabbed my interest.
Yeah, and the first episode is, to me, it's the best so far.
Agreed.
I'm still enjoying the show through the third, but the first definitely was above bar on that as far as that goes.
I like how she mentally compared herself to her sisters. Like her oldest sister was like this supermodel in a bikini, then one of them was like a gyaru or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, and kind of to boil it down, it's like the confluence of a highly cultural society with one which is absolutely focused on war and has no patience for romance or romantic ideals. It really does sound like the perfect shoujo manga.
Well,
all right, so I guess before we get too far into The World Is Still Beautiful, let's move on to our next title. We've all seen No Game, No Life, which I'm not sure how much you've seen, Matt, but I've gone through the first three. Anthony?
I'm up to the first three.
Yeah, I've seen all three.
Cool. All right, and for those that haven't seen it, it's about these two siblings, Sora and Shiro, who are basically hikikomori neats. Basically, they don't work, they don't go to school, they just stay in a house and play video games all day.
Well, at least Shiro seems too young to be in need.
True, but Sora is definitely. But
he
together
might be too young to be a neat. I mean, he's kind of borderline.
Yeah, he's borderline. Um, well, they're referred to as neats in the descriptions, so I'm just gonna leave it there. Anyway, together they play games under the alias Kuhaku or Blank, who are basically an urban legend in the gaming realm. And they both consider reality to be a shit game pretty much. So they're summoned by a boy calling himself a god to a fantasy world where all violence is forbidden and everything is sailed through games pretty much. Um, Everything from disagreements to even the ascendancy of royalty. So they basically have to find a way to exist in this world and save the human race before it gets sold out to well, a greater race, because the humans were basically over the years they kept losing games and they are now confined to one small city-sized kingdom. That said, personally, I really enjoy this one. I didn't think I would, but I love the sense of humor to it. It gets that right blend of the geeky and the funny. Like, especially episode 2 had me just laughing my ass off. Like the stethoscope and the fact that you'd see things like her
Oh yeah.
smacking her head into the wall and then just doing the Dio Brando, the that re thing.
Yeah, the stethoscope is definitely um, gotta say I love that. That's so funny. Just to clarify, that's she sees she sees Bashonen characters when she does her stethoscope, and then she's like all bothered by it.
Yeah, and that's because she lost a game to Shiro in episode not Shiro, Sora in episode 2, and his condition for winning was he had to fall in love with her. So no matter what, whenever she looks at him, she sees this idealized version like out of a shoujo manga.
Kind of following up from before, I should have dropped this, but I guess in Japan, you're technically an adult, or you could start a profession at 14 or 15. So it's certainly plausible that they could both be neats, although she's still borderline.
Well,
Yeah,
cause she's the girl's 11, and I don't know how old the guy is. But
Yeah.
'cause I think, because you don't have to. High school's not mandatory in Japan. You could stop it.
right.
You could stop after the end. Oh well, ninth grade for the. Oh, you can stop basically after the ninth grade for them, or third year middle school. You can stop. After that, you don't have to go on.
Yeah. Well, if they have the junior high concept, then it would be seventh grade where it ends.
Yeah, well, right.
Um, your first year of high school is basically your sophomore year. Your
Or wait,
first year of Japanese high school is
I said 7. I meant 9. Sorry.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'll start talking about this. I will say this show is fucking bright in terms of just the colors they use.
Oh god, yeah. I mean, it vomits rainbows.
Yeah, it's like it's almost like 90s
It's
color.
double rainbow vomit.
Yeah, it's
It
like
sneezes. It sneezes out like glitter covered things at all times.
yeah, basically, if you could think of like shows over, if you could think of sort of like somewhat 80s coloring, and I don't mean anime, just like normal stuff, and the 90s how they were, this is kind of how that show is, just in terms of just those colors. It's it's very bright, everything's very colorful.
I would say high contrast in most things.
Yeah, it's not like you see it and go like, oh god, burn it with fire. It's not that bad, but yeah, it's very high contrast, but it works. It works for their setting. I enjoyed the first episode. I did enjoy the second one, but the third one, that chess game though, that was great.
Oh, yeah,
I
the chess
agree.
game was great.
I would say the third episode is where it really hooked me.
Oh yeah, that's yeah. And I saw that, especially. Well, I did enjoy the Phoenix Wright reference at the beginning.
That was great. I mean, the fact that even the official looked just like the judge and they were playing the background music, it just made me laugh.
But yeah, probably say that this would probably be my. I'd say it's my show. This is my favorite show of the season so far. I mean, it doesn't take it. I don't want to say, I don't know if I'd say it takes itself seriously.
Well,
it's definitely in my top 3. I would say it's.
Likewise.
I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, it's really good. And Sentai got it licensed it, so I don't know if they'll put it on Blu-ray next. If they don't, I'm gonna be upset. This show definitely deserves Blu-ray.
I think that depends on whether it's a Kadokawa release, because all they said in the press release was details to be announced later.
It's Media Factory, and I think that's it's subsidiary of Kadokawa.
So DVD first.
I won't go into my rants about Kadokawa because it'll be like 20 minutes of me mostly just yelling profanities. So I won't do that.
Isn't that wasn't that kind of part of the joke of Read or Die TV, where like you could distill like every Japanese media company down to one of the 3 majors.
I did not watch Read or Die, so
yeah, it was kind of their thing. Like they were made up names, but it's kind of like Kodansha would have been one of them.
Yeah,
and Kadokawa is a multimedia company, right? They do manga and stuff.
Yeah, because I cringe.
So they might have been one of the other ones.
I cringe every time I see their name when they start something. I see Kadokawa, so I'm like, because for those who don't know, they've been basically they're worried about air quotes reverse importation of their products. So a lot of times what happens is their shows get DVD only releases here first, and then we have to wait a while, usually a year or 2, and then the Blu-ray comes out. We've seen this.
They're not the only ones.
Yeah, I know, but they seem to be the big offender with that.
They're the most consistent ones.
Yeah, I kind of want to say that because I tweeted this sometime this week, and I don't even remember when, but
you used Twitter this week?
I used Twitter this week. Isn't this amazing? Although I'm kind of like I'm still using the handle mattb_ad, which is it's a little bit. I don't have a new site yet, so cut me some slack.
No.
Anyway, I bought a whole bunch of stuff at Anime Boston, and it's mostly terrific quality, but I can't help but notice and lament the fact that when I buy these Blu-ray releases of things from Japan, and I know they must have surround sound mixes of the Japanese audio, we don't get them over here. And if they don't have surround sound mixes of Japanese audio, well, shame on them, because it's the friggin' 2010s. We're 20 years from the point where that was unacceptable to not have at least a 5.1 mix. And I can't help but think that they just decided not to give it to us for some kind of, vindictive reverse importation reason.
I'm gonna kind of interrupt you here. I'm not sure a lot of Japanese releases have 5.1 because and again, this is not, and I say this not as a piracy advocate, but I have gotten some Japanese Blu-ray rips, and there are some that do have 5.1, but I think a lot of them are still 2.0.
Yeah, because it's
I kind of went on a little bit of a rant there, and
yeah, that's fine.
I'm a little bit sorry about that. Not totally sorry, but a little bit sorry. But my first comment on that whole line of thought was that they just don't have it yet, and it's understandable, but from my point of view, a little bit pathetic, and that's all I'll say about that.
Well, I think Justin Zavakis said something on Answer Man not too long ago about somebody asked about like, well, why is the Japanese only 2.1 if the English is 5.1? And I think he went on either something about that's all they give the licensors, or that's all they ever put it in. Even the releases, I have to don't quote me on that. I has to look that up.
Yeah, that kind of sounds to me like they refuse to give the 5.1 to the U.S. releasers.
Wow. But anyways, getting on what I was saying about Kodakawa shows. Now, not all of them they do that for. A lot of the Funimation titles or Funimation shows they license from Kodakawa seem to be that way. But maybe they're starting to loosen that up, and we're starting to get some of the shows getting Blu-ray release. No Game No Life, I'm not sure. I hope it gets one because that show should be seen in high def. It shouldn't be seen. If it comes out DVD, it's going to be disappointing. But I really do hope that it comes out in Blu-ray. That being said, getting back to the show itself, this was probably my favorite in terms of being just a quality show. This and the show we discussed a little bit ago are probably my favorite, or my favorites so far this season, just in terms of being, these are good quality shows that I like. I mean, there's other ones that are my favorites for, like I said, for different reasons, but not necessarily because of quality. Yeah, I'm just kind of curious to see where it goes.
So am I. I mean, it's one of those shows that's got me tuning in every single week to see how it comes out.
Anything else you guys have to say about No Game No Life?
I think I'm good. I said what needs to be said. You, Matt?
I think I said a lot more than what needs to be said, so we can move on.
I will say one thing, though. For those who are wondering, there is Shiro. There is one little thing that might bother some people. Is yes, in the first episode she does get a panty shot, and yes, she's 11 years old. So that might, if you don't like loli fan service, that might bother you. But even then, it's not like up close, and it's not all. It's only a little bit. So
no, but it was incredibly minor, I'd say, because it's really just. It's almost there a comedic effect in some ways, because it's
at least she was wearing panties.
I mean,
well,
come on.
Well, they probably would have otherwise they would have had a massive stream ray of light. Although I do question the one thing where they said about apparently that 8 o'clock in the morning is nighttime. But I guess I guess for needs who play video games all day, I guess that is.
It's always 8 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Moving on. I'd like to move on to a show that I honestly have not seen, but I know you guys have. Brynhilda in the Darkness. Plot summary from A&M. When he was a child, Murakami was friends with a girl called Kuroneko. One day, while trying to prove the existence of aliens to Murakami, she is killed in an accident that he barely survives. Guilty of his role in the accident, Murakami decides to dedicate his life to proving that aliens exist. Then, one day, a new student with mysterious powers transfers into the class, who not only looks a lot like Kuroneko, but is named Kuroha Neko. So, I'll let you guys have at it.
It's just as bad as it sounds.
It sounds fucking horrible.
It's not a masterpiece. I'm only up to the third episode. It's starting to get. I mean, now to preface this is from the guy that did Elfen Lied, so preface that.
That kind of explains it for me.
Well, it's starting to get gory, but this is one of those ones I'm kind of on the offense about dropping this because if it really, I'm not. It's not a show that knows it's stupid and kind of takes itself stupid, but it's one of them shows that it's not going to be a masterpiece. It's probably going to be one of them shows that'll probably be forgotten eventually. But I'm not I'm going to watch it as it comes out, but I'm not. It's one that I'm not it's not a high priority show for me. I'm kind of curious to where episode 4 is going to kind of be my litmus test, because if I'm not really feeling it by then, which I think episode 4 comes out, well, again, the day after this recording is finished, I'm probably going to drop it.
This show was recorded on 4/26/2014. Mark that in your calendars, everybody.
Well, it makes sense if it makes more sense if I say that than say, oh yeah, it airs out the next day and then our show's out Wednesday.
I know.
It doesn't make sense in context.
I know. I'm just making a joke.
I know. So like I said, it's on the fence for me, but I'm not sure where it's going to go. If 4 doesn't grab me, I'm going to just go, I'm done with you and drop it.
As far as Brynhilder is concerned, I had seen enough after the first episode. And it's hard to explain exactly why, except it just, I don't know. Okay, so they show footage of the guy as a kid with his, kid friend whose name is Black Cat for some reason. And, there's a horrible thing that happens and blah, 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 flash to the present. And, all of a sudden she shows up again and she has no memories of him. That's never happened in Japanese animation. And it's just like, he's totally fixated on her because he obviously remembers something or thinks he remembers something that she obviously doesn't. And now it's like he's in full stalker mode and she kind of wants nothing to do with him, and there's a little bit of subtext behind that, and I won't really go into it, but it's like she doesn't really want to draw attention, and there's supposed to be a bunch of intrigue behind that, but I found myself not able to care at all. And that's pretty much the end of it for me.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time feeling like at least sympathetic for the main dude. I won't spoil it. They kind of get into a little bit more about the girls, which they call witches, about what, at least who they are. They kind of explain some things in episode 2, and 3 kind of explains some stuff about them that I'm not going to spoil. But it is hard to feel sympathetic for. Like I said, I don't feel anything for the main guy. He's just kind of this, like you said, this. I understand why he's fixated on his childhood friend that he lost, because that, it was a very traumatic event for him.
Well, it was like she had purple blue sort of hair, and this new girl has purple blue sort of hair, so they must be the same person.
I won't spoil it, but because episode 3, I think it explains that, or hints at it, but I'm not going to spoil it. Yeah, like I said, it's not. I guess it's not a real masterpiece. It is starting to get gorier. Episode 3 was really quite bloody. It explains something about the witches that leads to. I think they're going to hopefully explain episode 4 about, because they spoiler for listeners that when the black hair girl uses her powers, she loses some of her memories. Because in episode 2, it's found that she's living in this abandoned house with this other witch who is completely paralyzed, and the only way she can speak is by typing on this thing that looks something like a big calculator. Like basically it's a very tiny keyboard that she can just type stuff on and it talks.
So she's Stephen Hawking?
Well, she lays in bed.
Yeah, she has the use of her hands, so she's definitely not Stephen Hawking.
Well,
gotcha.
Well, yeah, because she just sits and types stuff, but she's just like, look out. Something, I think one says something about don't.
Hey, listen.
Yeah, because I think one she says about don't rape me or something, or don't molest me or.
Oh
something.
fuck!
Yeah. All right, again, I'm going off memory, so.
The fuck?
Well, she doesn't I don't think she likes guys. Well, it's because I think they were trying. It's because. Okay, I'm gonna have to spoil more of this. The witches have a short lifespan, and if they don't take this medication after a certain thing, they'll die. Sort of like Dead Man Wonderland, where the prisoners had to take medicine so the poison wouldn't kill them. And this is the same for
Dead Man Wonderland, you say?
Yeah, which is a good show if you haven't seen it.
Dead Man Wonderland is good.
Anyways.
Keyword dead.
Yeah. Well, anyways, if they don't take this medication, these pills, they'll die. They have a fairly violent death. Basically, their skin splits open and they start bleeding. And anyways, they have this house where she lives. They have this fire, and all the medicine that she had, all burns up, so she doesn't have any. Well, the guy somehow remembers seeing this code on the pill thing that was in, and said, "Oh, I know where this. I think I know where this is." So he figures out, okay, they have a good idea where this place is, but they have to hack into it, so they have to get help from this other witch, who is consequently going through the same. Who's basically she's past the initial point of taking her meds, so it's just 30 hours where they show her and she's sitting all covered, like basically she's bleeding because she didn't take her medicine, and it sort of ends there with that fourth episode. I think something really graphic happened because the girl that can't talk, she can see that she has like premonitions. She's like, "Oh, the future changed. Don't go to this, you'll die." She can see the future. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, I probably wouldn't be running to say, yeah, you got to watch this unless you absolutely need something to do or you need something very, very, or starting to become bloody to watch. But yeah, if you're not watching it, you're not missing much.
Honestly, from the description, I'm kind of glad I did not watch this one.
Yeah, like I said, it's not going to be something that if I watch it all the way through, it's something I'll never watch again. This doesn't scream as something I need to see ever again in my life.
And you know how I am, Mike. If episode 1 is that destructive for me, I just won't continue.
I'm the same way.
Well, I mean, I dropped out. I never finished Elfen Lied. I dropped after the first episode, so.
I'm the same on Elfen Lied.
Well, then again, I watched stuff like Dead Man Wonderland, loved it. And
Dead Man Wonderland was good.
And Blood Sea, and that was, violent as that got. Is, even though everybody seems to hate that show, except for Mike, me, and maybe a few others.
Yeah, I loved Blood Sea, just because of the sheer mindfuckery of it all.
Oh, yeah. But anyway, that's off topic.
That's another story for another day.
So that's all I have to say about that show. And that's all. Hopefully we'll never have to talk about it again.
All right, so going forward, that's the end of our talk about Brynhilde, period.
I know I won't talk about it anymore.
So, moving on. Definitely moving on. There's a show that...
Please, let's move on.
Yes, let's talk about another anime.
Let's kill that one dead. Anyway.
Move on already.
Well, I'm trying to.
It's like, stop.
This is a show that both Matt and I are watching. It's called, on Crunchyroll, The File of Young Kindaichi Returns.
Yeah,
the more accurate name is Kindaichi Case Files Returns, which is basically kind of like Detective Conan with a different bent. It's a Sherlock Holmes type of murder mystery show. Or
Kindaichi R for short. Yeah, the Crunchyroll description is completely bungled.
It really is. It's terrible. But the show itself is fantastic.
Yeah. I don't really have much to say about that other than it's if you're familiar with Kindaichi Case Files, which I am from the manga, it's kind of the same stuff, and it's an anime, and I love it, and it's pretty much the same stuff. Yeah, the only thing I'll say about it is that they kind of
stretch it out too much.
They do stretch it out. My sense is that it shouldn't have been 4 episodes to solve one mystery.
No, I remember talking to you at the end of the third one. I said, the first thing out of my mouth was, "What the hell? This should have been ended by now." Because it's one of those things where it seems like they were struggling just to get the content out, like just to pull it into a 4th episode, like, because I'm not sure who's watched I've never actually seen Kindaichi, which shame on me, but I'm very familiar with like Detective Conan and stuff like that, where they have the same kind of murder mystery, figure out the trick type of setup.
I'm right there with you, but I did watch or I did read some of the Kindaichi Case Files manga, so.
I'm just used to having that solid within 1 or 2 episodes when you've got this same similar involvement of the plot, and they're just stretching out just at times feels painfully long, which kills me because it's like it's good, but in the back of your mind you're like, all right, this could have been shortened a little, type of thing.
Yep. I mean, given my sensibilities, I would be happy if every episode was a case.
Even if they did two-parters, I'd be happy. Because it
I
the
mean,
mysteries
that
itself.
said, sorry. That said, it is classic Kindaichi, and
Yeah.
it's very well, Sherlock and or Agatha Christie like, and if you like those sorts of murder mysteries, then you'll like it. But
True.
yeah, both of us agree. It sounds like that they could move it on a little faster.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame because I really like what I've seen. I mean, I love the mystery presented so far. I love how it's handled. Uh, if I remember correctly, the Kulon mystery they're on right now was actually pulled straight from the manga. It's just a direct adaptation, which is a nice thing. I just I find myself struggling to find out how they're going to get it through that fourth episode without running out of gas.
Yeah, well, and I guess we'll find out as soon as we're done recording this. But um, my sense is that they'll probably wrap it up in the first half and then start on the next mystery. At least I hope so.
I hope so, because three mysteries for the season. I could see it actually. If it's a 12 episode series, I'll probably just wrap up the whole thing in this one, then leave the end of the episode just kind of segue into it.
Well, and for the benefit of American viewers, it's actually kind of similar to maybe more so to the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew mysteries, which are a little bit distilled down from the classic British murder mysteries. But
True.
I definitely got a little bit more of a young murder mystery vibe from these stories. So
True.
pretty much anything in that genre. But if you understand that it's going to be geared toward the younger audience, then I think you'll enjoy it.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely a fun show. They did a good job of explaining some of the tricks actually, which kind of impressed me. Some of the stuff was really really well planned out and clever. I mean, I'm not going to say what they are because then I'll just ruin the episode. I'll ruin the mystery, but yeah.
You ruined 4 episodes.
Yeah, I'll ruin 4 episodes. You're right. I'll ruin a third of the show. All right. I guess we should move on to the next title. It's one that both Matt and I are currently watching called Meikaku City Actors. This was actually one of the shows that Aniplex announced their acquisition of at Anime Boston 2014. At this point, there have been 2 episodes. The first one revolves around the character Shintaro Kisaragi, who is basically an 18-year-old hikikomori ni. I'm noticing a theme here anyway. Who has not left his room in 2 years. Honestly, I'm surprised they didn't have someone kind of cop knocking on the door to investigate the stench. Anyway, basically his whole life is his computer and the internet. However, one day due to the screwing around of his cyber companion, I guess it is, basically this virtual avatar called Na, who lives inside the computer. Shintaro spills soda on his keyboard and he actually has to venture out into the real world to get a new one, where a group of criminals break in and hold the people inside hostage. Here he comes in contact with a group of teenagers call themselves Mekakushidan. Episode 2 revolves around another character, Momo Kisaragi, who is a popular idol who has this supernatural ability to attract attention to her. And again, one thing leads to another. She ends up meeting with Meikaku Shidan. Anyway, plot out of the way. I just figured now's a good time to kind of discuss our thoughts on the show itself. You want to start off, Matt?
You forgot about the most important part about the first episode.
What's that?
he only ventured out into the world, as it were, to buy a keyboard because he wasn't able to get a new one within like a reasonable nerd amount of time, like one day, because it was the weekend or some such.
It was a holiday.
And I find myself doing the same thing sometimes. It's like, okay, how much do I really need this? And it's like, okay, well, if I'm going to have to wait till Monday, do I even want it at all? And most of the time the answer is no. And then on Monday I ordered it anyway. So, that said, honestly, I don't have a whole lot to say about this show, and I find that a little bit odd. But I'll say a few things. One, I mean, you know, there's the things you said, and you know, it's pretty interesting. There's like this sort of shadow group of special people who seem to be recruiting the protagonists of the these two episodes. For some reason.
Yeah, at this point, it's still kind of unclear because there's only been a couple of episodes at this point. It's still kind of building it up.
And it's even less clear in the second one. I mean, in the first, they're all being held hostage. So, hey, you know, points for effort. The protagonist of the episode solves the problem. So, these, you know, it's understandable that these other people who were also held up at gunpoint would be interested in what this guy can do.
Episode 2, it's kind of murky.
It's a little, it's a little murky in the second one.
She's an idol. She's super popular, and they want her. Okay, it just kind of, it's like, well, that happened.
Well, and to get the kind of to get the negative out of the way, or at least what seems like the negative, the whole show is kind of conceived on this thing called the Kagero Project, which is a Vocaloid something or other. Honestly, I don't follow Vocaloid. I'm not interested in Vocaloid. I cannot understand people who would travel to a physical location to see a virtual idol perform, and that's all I'll say about that.
Don't you remember Macross Plus?
I didn't really understand those people either.
Fair enough.
Anyway, so you know, it's Vocaloid inspired. It's super popular on Nico Nico. I'm looking at the Wikipedia page. So in my mind, it's not exactly marks against it, but it's two reasons why I wouldn't otherwise be interested, except for the third thing. That is the art style. The first two episodes I watched, I was like, well, I don't know how I feel about this, but it sure looks neat.
Yeah, I love the art style.
It's almost, you know, it's almost a little bit, yeah, it's not quite washed out. It's like this, it's absurd in a way. It's like this, it's a little bit watercolory in the sense that, you know, you've got a lot of white and pastel in the palette, but it's also sharper than watercolor. So in a sense, it's a contradiction to begin with. Anyway, the other thing that I sort of latched onto, especially in the second episode, is how the show makes use of camera angles to give us a little bit of an unusual view of everything. And there's very you know, not only camera angles but also shadows. It's very it's a little bit noir in a sense, but only visually. It's not a noir show.
No. Not in a million years it isn't.
Anyway, I've kind of taken the long way around this, you know, short story long. At some point in the second episode, I thought, you know, this is a lot like Soul Taker, which is, you know, I name drop that, and almost nobody, at least as far as I know, is going is going to understand the reference. But that was a show released in the I believe it was released in the bubble. Am I right, Mike?
Yeah, it was like the early 2000s.
Yeah. So it was another show that like made use of these weird pastel scenes, but also a lot of shadows. And I realized that only by looking it up, that it's the same director for both shows. And now I'm really interested in this show because Soul Taker was plot wise, it was a little weird, and also a little bit standard, but just what I saw was really neat. And I don't know any other way to describe it. It was just a very interesting show to watch.
It was very lovely to watch, like just on that visual level. Although funny enough, the first thing I said when I saw this was the art style reminded me of some of the key art stuff from Persona 3. Like that same flat shaded look in certain segments, that whole, like you said, the use of light and shadow. It really kind of gave me that kind of vibe to it. Which...
yeah, I can see Persona having a similar art style, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, plot-wise, I'm not sure, but I will say, as a character, I still think NA is great. She's just funny, and she absolutely does hate the person she's with in some ways. She will constantly bust his balls, which is great because he kind of needs it.
The only thing that I'm a bit confused about in Mekaku City is who the real protagonist is in this show. If it's just a group of people, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense for the long term. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I really do hope they kind of rally around one protagonist, because otherwise it's going to get a little bit weird at points.
Yeah, I mean, if it's going to be a short show, then that's okay. You know, there's this organization operating in the shadows, and
Yeah.
And all of these people come into contact with it somehow, and that's fine. But if it has any real length to it, I don't know. It needs to develop a leader.
Agreed. All right, so moving on. This is a show that I actually have not seen, but I know both of you guys have seen. It's Nanana's Buried Treasure. Base summary, thanks to Anna, is disowned by his father, Jugo Yama has run away from his home to the island of Nanae. He begins to live by himself, only to discover his room is haunted by the ghost of Nanana Ryogajo, who was murdered 10 years ago, and her killer must be found before she can rest in peace. Before her death, Nanana collected things from all over the world and hid them throughout the island. Using the mysterious powers of these hidden items, they should be able to find the culprit. As Jugo begins his hunt for her collection, however, he discovers he's not the only person searching. So, you guys can go have at it.
I'll let Matt go first.
Aw, me first?
Yes.
Thought you would never ask.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
And I just killed the conversation again.
God, why did you ask?
I don't know.
All right, so reviewing what we know, there's Nanana, this ghost who was murdered, and she collected a lot of treasure, and it is, dare I say, buried on the island. And that is almost everything that you need to know about this show. The new guy, whose name I have already forgotten, but Mike mentioned it, so whatever. Shugo?
Jugo Yama. Unless it's Hugo, I don't know.
Kugo. Yeah, whatever. All right. So he comes into the picture because he moves into the same apartment that this ghost Nanana resides in. And the apartment manager, who is a 30-something and a drunk who has a pile of beer cans on her floor when he arrives. How typical. It's almost like it was made by Gynax, but it wasn't. She ushers him into his new apartment that has a ghost in it. And I suppose he found out that's why it was so cheap or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, the first thing that happens when he arrives in this apartment is that she challenges him to a fight of some sort to decide who is the master of the apartment. And, you know, being a ghost who can materialize and dematerialize and strike at will, she totally wins. And maybe it's just because he's incompetent. It's hard to say. But she's the boss. She wears the pants. And it pretty much proceeds from there to finding her lost things that are buried all over the island, and all of the people and organizations, as it were, who have a stake in that venture. And we meet interesting characters along the way, one of which is a master detective, or so she says. She's like 12, or at least looks like it. And her assistant, who is a slightly older male person who dresses up as a maid. It's really that disturbing. But
now, wait a minute. I occasionally like traps, and I'm taking a liking to that guy. He's not that disturbing because at least he does look like a girl though. So,
you know, his very existence is disturbing, but he's a normal character. Sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, what I was going to say is they settle into this pattern pretty early on of, finding things that Nana buried for some reason or another. And ostensibly, the other resident of her apartment is looking for her killer, but at least in the first couple episodes has zero time to actually do so because he is off finding her things. So I'm not really sure what to think about the show so far, but I find myself enjoying it for some strange reason.
I'm liking it so far, but if this show starts taking itself seriously, I think that's part when I'll jump off and say, "Well, no, I'm done with it." How far did you get? Did you get up to episode 3?
I did.
Okay. I thought okay, this is going to be a spoiler for those listening. I thought how the president of the club, I wasn't crazy about how he was portrayed. Just like, oh, we're gonna find this item, and then he finds that cane, and then he's like mad. He's just like mad. No, he's like mad with power. He's like, I always wanted this. It's like now and then he starts abusing his power. I'm like, really?
It's quite silly.
I mean, I know this show's not taking itself seriously because if it does, I'm gonna drop it. I'm not really sure how this is all gonna play out. I mean, it's on the Natomia block, so it means it's not gonna have the normal amount of episodes. It's only gonna have 11 episodes, so I'm not sure how they're gonna play it out from here on out. I will say one thing that I did notice is that the main character, he has the exact same type of cell phone that I have. Just a little side note there. Because I was watching it, and I saw he's using the cell phone, and I'm like, that looks exactly like the cell phone I have in real life, which is an HTC, well, the cell phone that I have, which is a HTC One, it was the 2013 model. And I saw it, I'm like, that looks exactly like the same cell phone I have, and I'm like, oh yeah, it is. So a little side note there.
It's interesting that it's a Noe Tamina show because it seems to me like maybe it's the perfect show for that block, but it really seems like it's appealing to a younger sensibility, the sense of adventure.
Well, I mean, I know it is based off a light novel. Let me see here. Aimed at young adult male audience. So, I mean, yeah, it is. And Aniplex America's going to put it out here when it gets sometime after it's done airing. Of
course they are.
Yeah.
Although I'm not sure that's the best show for them, but definitely go on.
Well, it is it is done by A1 Pictures, and that's one of the subsidiaries. Well, it's a subsidiary of Sony, which is Sony Music Entertainment, which Aniplex is part of.
Yeah, there's definitely cost factored in that.
Well, yeah. I'm not, like I said, I'm not real sure how this is going to go. Like I said, if it does start taking itself seriously, I'm just going to drop it because I really don't think that the show isn't like set from the start to be a serious show. So that kind of transition, or the show is going to take itself seriously, and doesn't always work. And in this case, I don't think it's going to either. But I mean, is this going to be my favorite show this season? Depending on how it plays out, no.
Yeah, I feel the same way. If it starts taking itself seriously, it could go badly, and I think if it keeps going as it is, it could be something I like. It reminds me a lot of the Skies of Arcadia video game, to be honest. It's just there's a lot of hidden in plain sight type adventures to behold, and that's cool. But I think once it gets serious, then it just becomes a typical, a typical teen, kind of a typical shonen show at that point, because it's like there's somebody to protect and there's somebody who's trying to kill them all, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I thought, and yeah, I agree. I'm not sure where I'd place this. I don't know if it's a show that I probably would watch again. At the moment, it's kind of leaning towards a show that it's going to be a one and done. Once it's over, I'll probably never watch it again. I could be wrong. I mean, I could be wrong. I have a show that I really like, and maybe I'll save several months worth of pay to buy from Aniplex of America, but that remains to be seen at this point. And that's all I have to say about that show.
Well, Anthony, there's no other way that 2 months' salary can last forever.
Oh, you're right. Oh, but I will go back. One more thing about the show before I'm done. I am liking that trap made.
Right,
and the conversation has died again.
No, it is funny, but then the joke is over. Is what I would say.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give the show credit. They're not keep running that. Oh, I'm a guy.
I mean, even Steins Gate, which is a fantastic show, does the same thing.
Well, yeah.
All right. I guess we can move on to our final real tale discussion tonight, which is Mushishi Season 2. Basically, it's Mushishi. Ginkgo, a Mushishi, travels from place to place. Mushishi makes stuff happen. And things ensue. There's really not much more to say about it other than that.
There really isn't. I would only reiterate that in Japanese, mushi means like a bug, and in this story, mushi means something a little bit different, in that it's a sort of supernatural being. but kind of the same thing. It's like Ginkgo is he's almost like a doctor. He fixes these mushy interactions with humans whenever he can, and then he moves on.
Mm. Um, Really, I don't know what I can really say that hasn't been said before. It's a fantastic show, although it is definitely more of the same for Mushi, which isn't a bad thing. I'm definitely happy it's being made. It's definitely probably my favorite this season. And it's one that I've been watching as it airs without fail.
Indeed. I'll keep watching it until, well, basically forever. If, any OVA, any TV episode that comes out for it, I will definitely watch.
Likewise, it's just that good.
But, on the other hand, I'm not sure if we really talked about this before. It's definitely a very slow-paced show, and it's definitely a manga made for adults. And if you don't like that sort of thing, then definitely stay away, because you will be bored if you don't like slow-paced things.
It's definitely not a fat. Yeah, it's one of the slowest shows out there for sure. Which it works for what it is, but I can see people getting turned off by it. All right, and that's it for our core discussion. But I know Matt and Anthony do have a couple shows that they'd like to talk about themselves. So why don't you guys take it away?
I'll let Matt go first.
Thanks. All right. So I have a few things that I'd like to give brief mention to. The first is Chaika the Coffin Princess, which it's a little bit weird. It's a fantasy show where the main character is collecting body parts of her dearly departed dad, who is, at least the way the show describes it, he's the former emperor of like everything, and a despot, and everybody was happy to see him go. And there were, I believe, 8 heroes who, well, the show suggests that they divided his body amongst themselves and ended his reign that way. So it's rather violent concept. But anyway, the girl is very young, which is immediately a turn off. But she's a young wizard, which is sort of interesting. And she carries this really large rifle, which has magical properties and can do pretty much anything from microwave a potato to take out a advancing unicorn. So sort of interesting too, all of that. And she pairs up with these people who are fighters by nature and just look to keep fighting because that's all that they're good at and they can make money at it. So I guess you would call them mercenaries, but it seems like they don't really think of themselves that way, except if they really thought about it, they would admit it. That sort of thing. So that's pretty much the backdrop of the show, and I find it mildly interesting. Any kind of fantasy / battle / wizardry show, I'll give a decent viewing of. And after 3 episodes, the show has not let me down yet, so I will keep watching it. That's all there is about that. And actually, there's another thing that I neglected to mention that I will go ahead and bring up. There's a show called 1 Week Friends, where that's actually a very descriptive title. The main character is sort of infatuated with this girl who never talks to anybody, and it's with good reason, but he doesn't know that. So out of the blue, he walks up to her and says, "Let's be friends." And she kind of treats him like a stalker, which, you know, any self-respecting girl probably would. And that's the end of it, except he finds out where she eats lunch, and he goes up and eats lunch with her, and she is not revolted by this for some reason, and they seem to get along. So cool. They're friends for a week. And the catch is she forgets everything that happened in the last week, at least with respect to things that she enjoyed. So then the next week rolls around, and he's like, "Hey, let's be friends." And she has no idea who he is. And it sort of repeats itself from there. It's very 50 First Dates. I'm not totally sure that I want to keep watching this, but so far I kind of like it. It's not bad. And at this point, I want to jump to a show that is actually over, much to my chagrin. A few episodes back in our podcast, or possibly two, I'm not even sure, I mentioned that Space Brothers had reached its 100th episode, and that's like a big milestone, and hey, hurrah for those guys. But that didn't actually happen, and I realized after the fact that, and who does this, they stopped at episode 99 for good.
Ouch. Just
yeah.
Ouch.
It's not a bad place to end the show plot-wise, but come on, they got to 99 episodes. Why wouldn't they take that next step? That oh so important milestone, especially for a sci-fi, especially for a hard sci-fi. You know, since the stuff that they talk about is very realistic, and based in, you know, things that NASA and I would expect JAXA, although I don't know for sure, actually do. But no, they stopped it at 99 and decided that that was okay. And there's, you know, as a consolation prize, there's a movie coming up, which I'm sure none of us will be able to see legally.
That's just painful.
It's like 99 red balloons go by. Oh, sorry, wrong things. Never mind. I was thinking
you really shouldn't apologize for that. That's really how I felt.
That's like that. I was thinking of that song 99 Red Balloons.
99 red balloons. Yep. That's really what it comes down to. All right.
Any other shows you want to discuss, Matt?
Yes, there was one more. I'm glad you asked.
And what show is that?
So, Studio Bones, who actually most of us have a lot of respect for at this point, but there's some context there. They made a show called Razafon, which is sort of, you know, Evangelion rising out of the ashes, all Phoenix-like, and, you know, causing the same sort of influences, and yet, like, all of the characters are, like, all cuddly feely, and they care for each other, and it's, like, gooey, and then the same sort of crap happens, and, like, the whole world blows up, or something similar. Anyway, a lot of people, myself included, saw Razefon as kind of like a cuddlier Ava, but the same horrible things happened in the end, and then it's like, okay, whatever. I'm not gonna be those like 2 or 3 people that survive at the end of the apocalypse. So screw these guys. I hope that never happens. Anyway, and now we arrive at Captain Earth.
Captain Planet, he's our hero. Gonna take politics. Oh, sorry, wrong show again.
You promised you wouldn't do that.
Hey, I promise not. Hey, I promise not.
I think he promised that he would do that. So.
Hey, I promise nothing.
Captain Earth Zephon, as I like to call it. No, I really don't like to call it that. I thought I would see what it sounds like, and it sounds really nerdy. Okay, so it's a giant robot show. It's, once again, Evangelion rising out of the ashes and, like, vaguing up everything for us, and, like, well, you know, you can imagine, you know, that everybody who's not the immediate 2 or 3 main characters and their immediate support structure is going to be saying things that none of us understand. And even at the end of the show, we will probably have to read some kind of FAQ that explains everything. It's that sort of show. But just like Razefon, the show is at least conscious of, you know, the way people actually act toward each other in terms of people they care about. And in that sense, it's going to be a similar show, I think. I enjoy the fact that the main characters care about each other, and they're not like all angsty and you know, wham, my mother's gone, and you know, screw you, father, for somehow making that happen, even though, you know, you probably didn't, but it's your fault that she's gone. Anyway, that's actually not what I wanted to talk about. That's the backdrop of the show, as it were. The robot itself is sort of interesting in the sense that the main character starts by holding this gun-looking object that he doesn't know how it came into his possession, but it's glowing, so it must mean something. And all of a sudden, he's thrusted toward towards space, as it were, where he first comes in contact with this robot body, and then progressively moves toward other parts of the robot body. It's a 3-stage process, and finally winds up as Captain Earth and beats back the advancing whatever it is who shows up out of nowhere and tries to attack Earth. But it just seems like they're trying to attack Earth. It's kind of what's it called? It's kind of Argento Soma in the sense that it's like these things show up and move toward Earth, and we just assume that they're going to attack us. And we beat them back for some reason.
Those reasons.
Yeah. So the last thing I wanted to talk about as far as Captain Earth is the most important thing. It's the way that Japanese people pronounce Earth that gives it that special quality. They say ass, which sounds a lot like ass. And the reason I mention this is because The robot is called the Earth Engine, or the Ass Engine, and throughout part of the assembly sequence, as we'll call it, one of the characters in the control room says, "Ass Engine Expando," which the other part of the equation is the pilot is called the Ass Driver. So the Ass engine is expanding so that the Ass Driver apparently can move inside of it. And yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Dude, I just got flashbacks to Protectors of the Universe. For those that haven't seen Protectors of the Universe, it has a giant robot called Bazinga 7, who has a train that flies straight into his ass. I'm sure if you've been listening to this podcast, this comes up almost every episode. It is that much of a... It's so bad that we have to keep talking about it.
And I feel remiss if I don't mention that the show would also be called Captain Ass. All right, I'm done.
All right, Anthony?
I do want to talk about one show, some from my backlog. This week, I had the pleasure of finishing up Sword Art Online. And I have to say I actually enjoyed it. Now, let me preface this by saying that, yes, I will agree that the second half is kind of weak. Yes, episode 14 was not very good, and neither was the end of the ALO arc. That was kind of ass-pully, too. It wasn't very good. But that being said, though, I don't think it was all that awful. I gave the show about a 4 out of 5, which is like a B rating, so it was good but not great. And you know, maybe I'm going to take some flack for liking SAO, because I know it's popular to hate that show for all the reasons, and I do see some of the flaws that people mention about. But even that said, with the flaws, I still thought it was a very enjoyable show. The dub was okay. It wasn't the best. I wouldn't say. I think it was a Bang Zoom dub. It wasn't their best work, but it's listenable. The other, well, actually, I want to talk about a couple other shows since I didn't actually have much to say about SAO. Last Sunday, Easter, to make it more specific, I finished up Rokubu SS, which was actually very good. Unfortunately, this didn't get any type of legal streaming when it aired. So I had to wait a while before I got to watch it, but I'm just glad I watched it. It was a very good series. Still working on my backlog. It's just like, I don't know, like 100 some shows deep or something. I have to check. I did start up 2 more titles. I started today. I started up watching Nadia the Secret of Blue Water again, because I got to about episode 5 the first time I tried to watch, so I decided I'm just going to shelve it for a bit. And when I decided to start it up again today, I'm like, I'll just start from the beginning to kind of refresh myself in case I forget anything. And the other show I'm watching, which I only got through the first episode and I got part of the second, was Tokyo Mew Mew, which is a magical girl show that aired from about 2002 to 2003. And you might remember they did actually try to air it over here. 4Kids released it called Hollywood Mew Mew, which I have not seen that version, but from what I'm told is really, really bad.
You only had to say 4Kids.
Yeah, well, I know, but still. So Mike, what about you?
Honestly, I've mostly been in a holding pattern. I finished off and reviewed Lupin the Third, a woman called Fujiko Mine, which it's a fantastic show, gorgeous art style, and it's an interesting, surprisingly low-key look at the Lupin world. The pacing is actually very similar to, say, Cowboy Bebop, where It's generally episodic, but it kind of builds to a point, and most of the humor in it is just there to kind of serve as levity for the more tense moments. It really works well. I'd love to see another take on the Lupin world with that type of style. Um, Otherwise, I've just been I've been kind of bouncing from show to show, mostly rewatching some of the backlog stuff, like the Rama One Hat Blu-rays, because the new set's coming out in June.
Yeah, how are they? How does that look?
It looks fantastic. The colors really are vibrant. They pop very well. If there's one thing I really can't complain about is that there is a bit of grain in it, but given the age of the series, I'm willing to overlook that. Just because, well, Perfect Transfer is almost impossible from 30-something-year-old, yeah, almost 30-year-old film at this point.
Mm.
Um, but honestly, I've done a comparison between the Blu-rays and my personal sets, and like the DVDs, night and day, just visually night and day. Let's see. Otherwise, yeah, mostly been a holding pattern. Keeping up with the shows that we discussed last week, last show, and just kind of going through looking for the next title to really hit for a review. And I just lost my train of thought.
I just want to say that I'm glad you're watching Nadia, Anthony, and I think you'll be rewarded. Even though the show has a not insignificant section where it's just filler, overall it's very good.
It is. It's a really charming show.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching more of it.
That's a classic Gainax, isn't it?
Yes.
Yep.
Very early guy next.
There you go.
Yeah, I want to say it was inspired by Laputa, which is also a terrific movie.
I wouldn't be shocked if it was, to be honest.
Yeah, well, it's that, and also the original source material,
Yeah.
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Right. Yeah, it's the Jules Verne adaptation there.
Well, in his case, it wasn't an adaptation.
Well, it was an offshoot type of thing, like their own take on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was getting at.
Oh, I actually do want to talk about one more thing now that I'm thinking about it. The one show I mentioned this last podcast,
Mm-hmm.
the regular Magic High School.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk about this series because I just watched episode 4 today, and this show is basically supposedly one big shitstorm before it aired because supposedly it's a very popular light novel. And supposedly it's very like pro Japan, very negative like other countries, and the guy's supposedly a Gary Stu, which I don't really see that. So the problem with I'm up to the 4th episode, and the big problem with this is we got a lot of these like either we get these really big parts of exposition or these just really massive info dumps, and it just like almost like I don't want to say stops the plot, but like all the pacing that it had, like this one had a bit. Like, today's episode 4, sorry, is of this airing. Episode 4 had this real big, like sort of in the middle, this really big, or not the middle, a little bit after the beginning, had this really big info dump, and it's like, okay, I know this is a very like terminology heavy light novel. But it's like, can you trim some of that back so we just don't have these big info dumps? Because they spent like I think maybe like 6 or 7 minutes just blabbing off all these terms. Like, why didn't you have this thing? It's like, well, civilians can't buy this thing. The military has it, but I don't need that to stop this. And here's why. Blah 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 blah. And then, like, oh, you have this thing. Well, that's lethal. It's like, well, it didn't kill me. And then blah 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 and all this stuff. And it's just like, if you get rid of some of the info dumps, this would improve the pacing dramatically. I can see why people drop the show because of that. Not much is going on. But I'm just going to keep going to see, because if episode 5 doesn't do anything, I'm about ready to just say nope and just let it go.
Yeah, I honestly don't blame you. From the sound of things, I kind of jumped off at a good time.
Yeah, on one other show, I want to talk about Black Bolt. That's another show, and Sentai licensed this one. This one is another one that has a lot of problems with exposition, because it doesn't slow down the pace at all. But like the most recent episode, this guy's trying to, when I explained in the previous podcast, was these creatures were trying to kill humanity's Gastria. Well, this guy who has this, like, wears this mask, wears this, like, mask on his face. He's trying to summon what they call level 5 Gastria, which is like the highest level. So they go through the main guy in this, I guess, his partner in this business, I guess a friend of his, or sorry, it's a friend of his who is like the owner of this business that they're part of, the public defenders. She goes in this whole thing, like, explain this exposition about that he obviously should know the levels of these guys. She's like, that's the highest. Did you know they go from 1, 2, 3, or like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then into 5, which is like so rarely seen. I'm like, don't need this exposition. I'm like, he knows all this stuff, and that's some of the problems with. I mean, I don't mind light novel adaptations, but that is some of the problem with these, and it's like a problem with this one, with Black Bullet, and a problem with the regular Magic High School, that they don't know how to either to take this exposition or this info dump from what's written in, say, the light novel and translate it into something that works with the anime. I mean, there are times you just can't do that, and that's fine. But it just doesn't seem like the writers are good enough to. And again, I don't know if it's because they can't have some out of, they're not allowed to either adapt it, or they're doing the best they can to work with it. But they just got to do something, because in some of these shows like Black Bullet, it's dragging it down. Because it's a good show so far.
Are you talking about the traditional the shonen explanation fest, where something's happening and somebody has to go into every minute detail about what's happening?
No, I'm going into where, like, and this was also like, I'm going to talk about Black Bullet here for a little bit. I know we're going over some time here, but I'm just going to explain this. Like, in the first episode, like, the later half of the first episode is basically just big exposition, where this doctor is explaining to the guy all this stuff that he should already know about Gastria. Because he fights them, he should know that what they are and what they're doing to humanity. He shouldn't have to be told, well, they've been here for 10 years and they're killing, and they affect people and kill people, and they're killing humanity. It's like, you already know this. You're doing this. And and it's happening so far in each episode. There's these big exposition dumps, or not big exposition, but this sort of people, they know this stuff, and I just feels like if they would take some of that out, I think it would improve. Like, I mean, I know you have to keep some stuff in so the viewer knows what's going on, especially for those if they haven't read the light novel. Like, again, like with that show, because I haven't read the light novel for Black Bullet, so I don't expect them to just.
That's what they think anyway. I'm a little bit what am I trying to say? I think most of the time when they try to explain things to the viewer, they either failed at the basic premise of the work, or they think that people need spoon feeding, which if the former is, if they didn't fail at the former, then they shouldn't need to do the latter, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I mean, I understand you have to have some exposition. I'm not saying that that's bad, because I understand you have to have some stuff. And again, you have to because you don't want something where it's a case of, well, I don't understand. Well, you got to read the novel. It's like, well, no, not everyone can, because then you're only just focusing on the fans of the novel, and then everybody else is just kind of scratching their head, going, well, what the hell are they talking about? So I understand you have to have some exposition and some info dumping, and I'm okay with those, but don't don't make it where it's a big chunk of the episode, because that just drags everything down.
Well, and more importantly, why would I watch the show if I could just read the novel? I want to do either one or the other, really.
More than anything, it's just going to scare away casual watchers.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I understand you have to have some exposition, and I'm fine with that. I'm totally okay with that, because you do need to explain stuff. I just think maybe that the writers for these shows maybe need either. Again, I don't know if this is a case of that they're not allowed to change anything from the if they're not allowed to change anything or make too many changes from what the source material says, or if the person who wrote the novel has any type of say over anything, they look at it and go, okay, that's okay. Maybe there just needs to be an improvement in there. But I mean, if I'm not gonna get that nitpicky, then I might as well not watch anything. But it's a small nitpick that drags those. Regular Magic High School is kind of not so good for other reasons, but Black Bolt, those expositions is kind of dragging the show down a little bit for me, but that's just a minor nitpick. And I think that's all I have to say about that.
All right, well, that's tonight's show, everyone. Thanks again, as always, for tuning in. Till next time, I'm Mike Ferrer, signing off.
Peace out, yo.
Yeah. Sayonara, bye-bye.